Hey everyone! We're going to finish up our last video of Intro to Solving Equations, and one thing I want to go over before I start the video is, before I start the instruction, is in this Schoology, this is where your videos will always be unless you do not have Wi-Fi. So you will always access your videos through courses. You'll click on Mathematics, and then once you do that, you will click on a folder depending on what unit we're in. Right now we're in Intro to Solving Equations, so you'd click on that folder and then you would click on the video for the date that you're watching the video. I hope you don't have any more questions with that. I just wanted to clarify that for you. Now we'll get to our video. You should still be in this same packet that we've been working in all week. And today we're going to finish up this packet. So the front and the back of this last page. So I'm going down to where it says directions, find the value, if any, using substitution from the given set that solves each equation. So this is a little bit different than what we've done in the past few days. In the past few days, we've used the inverse operation to undo equations or to isolate the variable and solve. Today, we're going to use what they give us in the set and substitute in for the variable to see if any of these numbers indeed work. So if we look at 7c equals 42, we know that 7 and c next to each other with nothing in between means to multiply. So what we know that we are going to substitute these numbers in. We're going to multiply them together. So I'm going to take this 5 and I'm going to substitute it in for c. Now when you substitute it in, you need to insert a little raised dot, which means to multiply. 7 times 5 is 35, so that is not going to work because it has to equal 42. The next one we're going to try is 6. 7 times 6 equals 42. So fortunately enough, our second number worked, and so we already know that in this set, we know the answer is 6 because it's equal and we have to make it equal, so 6 is the only number that will work. 294 will not work. Okay, so knowing that, we're going to go on to this next one, which is addition. We're going to take each of these three numbers and substitute them in for the letter D and see if this works. So we're going to take 45 and try it first. We're going to do 45 plus 39. If you would like to set it up this way so that it's easier to add, I like that. So that's 14. We're carrying the 1. That gives me 84. Unfortunately, that does not work, so 45 gets crossed off. We'll try 55. 55 plus 39. Go ahead, pause the video and solve that. Okay, you should have gotten 94, and that does work. That's what we wanted. So 55 is the correct answer. No need to try 65, so we're going to write that on the line. This is called solving an equation with substitution, so a little bit different than what we've been doing in the last couple days. All right, the last two at the top, using substitution, we want to substitute these numbers in and see if they indeed equal 192. So we're going to start with 14. Now, I'm going to set that up and down vertically. So 12 times 14, if I multiply this, I get 48. Then I'm going to use a placeholder 0. I get 168. So I know that is not correct, so I'm going to cross off 14. I'm going to try 16. And I get 192, which is what I want, so 16 is the magic number. We don't need to try 18. Only one number will work since this is equals. All right, this last one is a little bit different. It has a fraction with it. So again, we talked about this the other day. When there is a number 1 as the numerator, we can go ahead and put this g on top of the 3 and set it up like this. Now, when we substitute our numbers in, we are going to substitute in, and we also learned that this means divided by. So we're going to take 18 and divide it by 3, and that gives us 6, so that does not work. We're going to take 27 and divide it by 3. That gives us 9. That does work, so there is no need to go on to 30. So we're going to cross 30 off, circle 27, and that is how you use substitution to solve equations. So sometimes they will give you a set of numbers that you must try. It's called guess and check or trial and error, and that's how you would use substitution to solve equations. So much different than actually the traditional way of solving an equation like we learned yesterday and the day before. All right, the last portion of this lesson is solving two-step equations. Now, two-step equations have two operations, so I'm going to write that here. It's not like order of operations, though, because that's with expressions. These are equations. So one of the key points is you're going to save the adding and subtract. Oh, I'm sorry. Whoops, Mrs. Laker's thinking ahead. You're going to save the multiplying and dividing until the very end. So the first steps that you're going to work on are adding and subtracting. So you're always going to draw your T kind of like you did in the first part of this unit when we learned how to solve one-step equations. And what you're going to do is you're going to identify what you are doing. So this is adding. We're going to do the inverse, which is subtracting. And we're going to subtract the number that's by itself, the 1. So here we're subtracting the 1 next to the plus sign, and we're subtracting the 1 over here. This is nothing new, it's review. Then we're going to bring down this 2z that we have left. Okay, I'm using a light arrow there to show you that I'm bringing that down. And now if you look, this is a one-step equation, and we did solve these types of equations yesterday, or I'm sorry, the day before. If you look, it's very similar to this one right here. So when we have a letter next to a number and there's nothing in between, that means to multiply. We do the inverse, which is division. So now we're going to divide this by 2 to get the variable alone. These cancel because that equals 1, and 1 times z is z. 8 divided by 2 is 4, and so our answer is z equals 4. We're not going to learn how to check because this is a long process as it is. If you wanted to check, you would just substitute that 4 in for z, and you would do 2 times 4 is 8, and 8 plus 1 gives you 9. So it did work. All right, we're going to try another one of these. And in this case, since it is addition again, we're going to go ahead and do the inverse operation, which is subtracting 2. Both sides, you're going to bring down this 5 and p, and we're going to put equals 10. So make sure this is nice and neat like mine. Now, before, you didn't have a 5 with a p. You just had a p in a one-step equation. So if we look back at this page here, you would just have 1z. But now we have a 5p. So now we have to do two-step equations here. So now we're going to go ahead and undo this equation by dividing by 5 to get our variable alone. And that is going to equal 2 because 10 divided by 5 is 2. Alrighty. Next one, a little bit tricky because we have some decimals involved. Not to be worried. We're going to do the same concept, use the same concept. Since this is adding, we're going to subtract 4.8. Make sure you bring the decimal with it. When you line these up, you want to make sure that you line up your decimals carefully. If you write large, if you want to do this off to the side, feel free, but just make sure you write it back down over here as well. You're going to cancel those out because they equal nothing. Bring down that 9 and y on this side. You're going to subtract these, and since I can't take 8 from 4, I'm going to borrow. I'm going to subtract 14 minus 6, drop the decimal. 6 minus 4 is 2, and I get 12.6. The next step is to get y by itself, so we need to divide by 9. Okay, 9 goes into 12.6. Let's go ahead and do this work off to the side. Bring up your decimal. 9 goes into 1. Nope, it goes into 12 once. We're going to subtract. We get 3. Bring down the 6. 36. 9 goes into 36 4 times. That 4 goes above the 6. And our answer is 1.4. We're going to bring down that y, and y equals 1.4. So that is how you solve two-step equations when there is multiplication involved and you did the inverse, which is division. Now we're going to get to our last problem, which actually has division involved. And remember, according to the first little step here, it says save the multiplication and division until the end. And if you noticed, in all of these equations, the first step I did was I subtracted or added the number next to the operation. So I always did that every single time. And then my last step was to divide by that number next to the variable when I brought it down. So I hope that you're able to see the consistency between all of these problems. Now this problem has division, so we're going to wait to touch that until the very end. The first step is going to be to add 3. So we're going to add 3 to both sides to clear these out. We're going to drop this whole guy down here, so x divided by 4 equals, and we're going to take and add 7 plus 3, which is 10. Now this looks very similar to a problem we did the other day. It looks very much like this one right here. And if you noticed, this meant divided by, so we multiplied, we used these little parentheses to show multiplication by the number on the same side of the variable. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to multiply both sides by 4. Those cancel because that's 1, and 1 times x is x. 10 times 4 is 40. Now, if I wanted to show a check on that, if you are into checks, you just take that 40 divided by 4 minus 3. So you do 40 divided by 4, you get 10, and 10 minus 3 should give you this value of 7, and it does. So there is a check. Okay, if you want to learn how to do a check for one of these, I can show you quickly how that works. You just take this magic number of 4 that you got as your answer, you substitute it in for z. So watch, 2 times 4 plus 1. So 2 times 4 is 8, and 8 plus 1 is 9, and it does work. So that is how you would check a two-step equation, but you do not need to. I just really want you to get used to solving two-step equations using the process here. So focus on that right now. All right, thank you for watching. We will practice more in class tomorrow. I know there are a couple word problems on the back, and we may do those tomorrow in class. So bring this packet back to school with you, and make sure you check Schoology to see if there's a little assignment post this video. So check Schoology for today's date. Thanks for watching.